So many people are considering moving to the Fargo-Moorhead region for good reason. It is an awesome city and metro area, right on the border between North Dakota and Minnesota, with Fargo being one of the biggest city in North Dakota. But today, I'm going to be breaking down what you need to know about the cost of living in Moorhead. I'll be also doing another video about the cost of living in Fargo and comparing those two. I will be also linking where I found all this information in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, moving to Fargo-Moorhead is the right thing for you, feel free to reach out. Let's get right into the cost of living in Moorhead, Minnesota. As you can see, Moorhead on the cost of living score ranges at 87.6. This is considered less expensive, as is 12.4% lower than the US average and nearly 10% lower than the Minnesota average. Moorhead is one of the most affordable cities to live in the whole entire state of Minnesota. The biggest thing to consider when moving to Fargo-Moorhead is to know your cost of living. And the big thing is state income tax brackets. With Moorhead being in Minnesota, Fargo being in North Dakota, they have different tax brackets that vary a lot. So let's look at those now. The tax brackets for Moorhead, it ranges from 5.3% all the way up to almost 10% for the highest percentile, compared to the Fargo and North Dakota tax brackets, which ranges from only 1% to almost 3%. So as you can see, it is a lot more income tax when you're living in the state of Minnesota and in Moorhead. But houses are a lot more affordable, however, in Moorhead than they are compared to Fargo, and I'll be breaking that down now. The median estimated value for a home in Moorhead is just above $270,000, and you can see from this graph how affordable that is compared to the rest of the state and compared to the nation. So this red line up here is the whole entire nation. This yellow line is the state of Minnesota, and these two lines down here is Clay County, which is the county of Moorhead, and 56560, which is the Minnesota zip code for Moorhead. So look at this big difference, this big jump of property value. So this shows how much more affordable homes are in the Moorhead area. And this, by absolutely no means the homes in Moorhead are lower quality than the rest of the nation or the rest of the state. There's a lot of different types of homes in the city of Moorhead, including all new construction, townhomes, twin homes, single family, bi-levels, ramblers, everything that you could ask for in a home you can find in Minnesota or have one custom built for you. So it's not that the quality of homes is lower, but the price of homes is lower, just being in that Moorhead region compared to the Fargo region. So now we'll break down the Fargo median estimated value of a home, which is just under $350,000. Now this is still lower than the national average, but... By the way, I'm Zachsykorarealtor, real estate agent here in the Fargo-Moorhead and surrounding areas. If you ever have any questions about anything or want to see if making a move isn't the right thing for you, you can schedule yourself right into my calendar with a link in the description below. It obviously is higher than the Minnesota average, and it is higher than the Moorhead average. So the cost for a home in Fargo is kind of the basis of the cost for a home in North Dakota, being that Fargo is the most populated city in North Dakota, but it is still lower than the national average. So you can see that maybe in North Dakota you're paying lower income taxes, but you may have to be paying more for your housing, and vice versa in Moorhead. So after thinking about this, you have to know the property taxes too. The property taxes of Minnesota is 1.02%, and the national average is 0.99%. So Minnesota and North Dakota, they don't have a lot of variance on the state income tax, state property taxes, and they're generally pretty close to the same. But this is what we do need to look at. So we'll take that basis number of 270 and plug it in here for the county of Moorhead, county of Clay and the city of Moorhead. We can find that property taxes on a yearly basis for an average home is going to be around $3,000. But people who are moving to Fargo-Moorhead, they may not be considering getting a home right away, and they may want to consider renting. So this is the apartment rent by bedroom size. So this green line and the blue line is the Fargo-Moorhead area. As you can see, is actually very similar for all three, the 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio apartments to rent an apartment. These are very similar costs, but they are really low compared to the Moorhead and the national costs, being 35.5% cheaper than the national average and 34.8% cheaper than the state average. So those both being 35% cheaper, but one thing that we do notice is that the average is just around the same for Fargo and for Moorhead. You can notice the average is just around the same for Fargo and for Moorhead for all three. So this is huge if you're considering moving to Fargo-Moorhead and deciding whether on the Moorhead side or the Fargo side, and maybe you're going to rent, then maybe it's a better idea to go on the Fargo side when you know that the income taxes in Moorhead are going to be a lot higher than they are in Fargo, even with the rent being around a similar price. So now this would be the cost of living in Moorhead by expense category. So energy, food, healthcare, housing, and transportation. And this will be compared to just a national average. So energy costs in Moorhead is actually really, really low. And this is for one big reason, is the fact that Moorhead and Minnesota as a whole are a big carbon-free energy source. According to a report by the Clean Energy Economy of Minnesota, over 54% of their energy comes from carbon-free sources. And what this means is like wind turbines, water, hydro, and solar. That's where their energy is coming from. And that is compared to the national average, which is just 41% for other states. So this makes energy in Minnesota being very renewable and therefore cheaper. And the food in the Fargo-Moorhead area, if you've ever been to the Fargo-Moorhead area, you know as well how much farmland the Fargo-Moorhead area is surrounded by, and North Dakota being mainly farmland. The food is really cheap in the Fargo-Moorhead area with a lot of it available. And with cheaper living expenses in a cheaper area comes cheaper food. But that does have a negative effect on the healthcare because the healthcare is higher than the national average. This may be due to the Fargo-Moorhead area it is a big metro area, but compared to Minneapolis and Chicago, it's not that big. So to get those specialists to come out to the Fargo-Moorhead area, we may have to pay them more, or they may have more overhead, or whatever it may be. So that's what causes the healthcare prices to be a little bit higher. Then housing is 34.5% lower than the national average. We already touched on that over here on this graph. That's at 34.5% jump right there from the Fargo-Moorhead area, up to the national average. Then transportation is slightly higher in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and this is due to the fact that there isn't a lot of public transportation available. In Moorhead specifically, they do have buses, they do have bikes you can rent, but over 80% of people, almost 80% of people do drive their own car to work, and then a lot of more people carpool with those people. So with all these people driving to work, that's what's going to cause this cost to go up compared to national cities and big cities that have subways and trains that go all over the place. Fargo-Moorhead does not have a subway. It does have buses, like I mentioned, and it also has bikes that you can rent in the Moorhead area, but they're not used as much as in other bigger cities. So now taking these numbers, I just want to compare them to some of the other major cities around the country, like San Francisco, Washington, Chicago, New York, all these big cities that the cost of living in Moorhead is lower than all of them, even up to 80% lower than living in San Francisco, California. This obviously makes Moorhead a very, very affordable place to live, being one of the most affordable places to live in the whole entire state of Minnesota, comparing it to Minneapolis or those other types of cities like that. And Moorhead is just really affordable for everybody to live at. And now I just want to show you this one resource I have. I know I can tell you what the average cost of living in Moorhead is. This is an excellent source where you can see what maybe you would be paying for the cost of living in Moorhead, Minnesota. So this is on a website, which will be linked in the description below for you to check it out for yourself. But you can see it will break down the yearly cost, the hourly wage that you need to get to that cost, the childcare, food, healthcare, housing, transport, to kind of give you more specific numbers. We can look at the averages for everybody, but for everybody's unique situation, it's going to be different, obviously. So the average size of a family in Moorhead and in Minnesota is 3 people. So we'll just go off that. We'll say you're married and both of you guys are full-time workers with 1 child. So we can see that the yearly cost is just above $61,000. And then the wage, childcare, food, healthcare, housing, transportation, then taxes. So this is something that you take into consideration, especially when moving to Fargo-Moorhead. As I said before, you can find this website. It's through the Minnesota Employment and Economic Development site. You can find that in the description below and check it out for yourself. Thank you for watching this video on the cost of living in Moorhead, Minnesota, and what you need to know. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything else you want information on, you can find that my contact information in the description below. And if you follow my channel, I'll be bringing you anything and everything to do with the Fargo-Moorhead area and all